What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we all know how things turned out for Balan Wonderworld last year when it released, becoming one of the worst rated games of the entire year. Well, yesterday, something surprising happened in that Yuji Naka showed up on Twitter and gave his entire side of the story, and I certainly didn't see this one coming. We're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony blocking PlayStation subscribers from renewing or stacking PlayStation cards, and we're also going to be talking about Microsoft as they have now officially announced their big summer showcase. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with PlayStation Now, the new tiers coming up, but specifically the games that should be in that retro collection for the premium tier and how they just keep leaking out on PlayStation's own network. And in fact, over on Reddit, people have been cataloging these as they've popped up. We can see the list currently standing with Tekken 2, and you can actually click the link there and check out some of the high-resolution artwork that they'll have set up for these different games. We have Ridge Racer 2, Mr. Driller, Worms World Party, and Worms Armageddon. These are all PlayStation 1 titles, and they've also started to link to some of the different listings that are kind of popping up with the title ID and all of this. So it does appear that these games are going to be part of that. I mean, it's good to see a fighting game thrown in there, basically some party games sort of with Worms, and then a racing game with Ridge Racer, and even something a bit out there with Mr. Driller. And the part that I'm really curious about is the PS2 side of things. Sure, there are some really good original PlayStation games, but that PS2 side of things, we've seen Sony kind of get into with PlayStation Now, but I really want to see them go full on, grab the Metal Gears and dive into some of the JRPGs and just fill up that side of the service. But we should be finding out pretty soon the entire list, because we're like a month out from this service launching, so we'll see. Also, there was something really cool that popped up over on Twitter. Take a look at this. This was posted up by Hut saying Mario Sunshine, except it's one of those weird GBA ports that's kind of like the game, but isn't. This is referring to back in the day, we had the Game Boy Advance version of a game and then the console version of the game, whether it was on like the PS2 or the GameCube or the Xbox. The GBA version would have similar box art. It would look kind of like the same game on the shelf if you just looked at the covers, but it was completely different. But this is a really cool imagining of what Mario Sunshine could have looked like on the Game Boy Advance, and Hut's done this with several titles. It's just a really cool piece of artwork here. However, it got me thinking, how would people react if some of these companies, maybe it's Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft maybe, if they did demakes of some of their older titles into something like this, a reimagined version of the game? I would be very interested to see that, and sure, it's Mario Sunshine. That could be kind of cool as like this top-down isometric Game Boy Advance style game, but just something I kind of came up and I was thinking about there. I know people are obviously all about the big-time visuals, all 3D and everything, but going back, taking one of those games from the GameCube even, and moving it down to like a 16-bit style game, that could be kind of cool to see. Oh, and as we roll into what would normally be E3 time, we're kind of expecting Activision to start talking about the next Call of Duty. We already know this year is going to be a new Modern Warfare game, and it looks like they've started some of the marketing here. This was posted up just on Call of Duty's Twitter account saying the new era of Call of Duty is coming, Modern Warfare 2. And this tweet exploded as expected. Call of Duty, a very popular intellectual property, but very quickly amassed over 1 million views on Twitter in less than 24 hours. Has 90 some odd thousand likes. And I think after Call of Duty Vanguard, people are excited to hear about Modern Warfare 2 with Infinity Ward behind it. I liked Modern Warfare when that released. Now we have Modern Warfare 2, not to be confused with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 that released back on the Xbox 360. The whole naming thing is still throwing a lot of us off, but yeah, I'm curious about this one. I'm sure I'll be checking it out later on this year when it does release. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Yuji Naka absolutely blasting Square Enix. This was posted up in a string of tweets yesterday where Yuji Naka went over essentially the backstory, or his side of the story, when it comes to Balan Wonderworld, a game that released and basically was one of the worst rated games of the year for 2021. On the Switch, it's like, what, mid-30s on Metacritic? Not great. But it appears there is a lot going on here when it comes to the buildup for the release of it, coming down to an entire lawsuit where Yuji Naka couldn't mention much of anything until now. And there were a lot of translations going around that were mostly using Google. Some people were able to do better translations of it, but we're going to go over here to gamesindustry.biz and just get down to exactly what was going on here. They say, according to Google's translation of the tweets, his removal appears to be around two disputes. One concerning the use of a YouTuber to play the game music in the marketing rather than using the original score, and the other over co-developer Arzest submitting the game for release without fixing various issues. He says, quote, "Personally, I'm really sorry that I released the unfinished work Balan Wonderworld to the world. I wanted to think about various things and put it out in a proper form as an action game. I think Square Enix and Arzest are companies that don't care about games and game fans." Whew, that's Yuji Naka letting everyone know how he feels about Square Enix, and a lot of this comes down to him being removed 6 months prior to the game's release, and he even recalled a story about how he was working on Sonic back in the day up until its release to implement things like you not getting wiped out by an enemy even if you had like one ring, which I thought about that. I said, what would have been the alternative? Like if you were below 10 rings, you would have just been killed by an enemy if they hit you, because I mean, with Sonic the Hedgehog, when you're really first playing through that game, you'll be trying to grab that one ring to survive the next hit from the boss. And if you just died while having one ring, that would have made that game very annoying, but apparently that wasn't even implemented until close to when they had to submit it for release. So I guess in his mind, he could have done a lot more for Balan Wonderworld leading up to its eventual release. I don't know if he would have been able to necessarily fix the game and make it a lot better, but I don't think he could have made it any worse. Now, he also mentions that Square Enix producer set a very tight schedule for them to try to meet, and they even had him refrain from liking or retweeting fan art on Twitter, which seems strange because that feels like easy promotion. Someone really likes the characters that you've introduced here and they want to have their own spin on it, and then you go, oh, that's fun, I'll interact with the different fans who are enjoying these character models and want to pick up the game, and just works to spread it. But I don't know, Square has really been messing up recently, haven't they? Like they feel like they're having a lot of internal issues with some of these game releases, or just working with third parties. So there's development studios like with Yuji Naka and his team, or what we've seen recently with Babylon's Fall and Platinum. Now, the reason Yuji Naka was able to speak out at this time is because he had filed a lawsuit and the business order, or basically the NDA, had expired, and immediately I guess he went to Twitter and wanted to let everyone know what happened, because I guess if you think about it, we've been ragging on Balan Wonderworld and attaching Yuji Naka's name to it, obviously because he was the director for the game, and he himself looked at it and said, yeah, the game's not complete. Like, I'm sorry, this game is out there now, but we have more context to the situation here, him being removed 6 months prior to its release, and Square basically just pushing the game out there and saying, you know what, that's it, we're not spending any more time or money on it. It's $60 and now it's out on shelves. But I'll leave a link down below to Yuji Naka's entire string of tweets. He also went ahead and it looks like used Google Translate to move it over into English and post it all up so more people could understand it. But I think we figured there was something going on there with Balan Wonderworld in the state that it came out in. Turns out there was quite a bit more to it, and wow, I mean, Yuji Naka just flat out saying, yeah, Square doesn't really care about the games or the players when they're releasing these things. Next up, let's talk about Sony blocking PlayStation subscribers, at least with these different PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus cards, where you could redeem and then start stacking these years over and over and over. It was basically something people figured out they could do after Wario64 posted up and everyone was rushing left and right to grab these cards at $60 a piece, which was half of what Sony was going to be charging for the PlayStation Plus premium tier here in about a month or so. But something odd happened, and it looks like people aren't able to redeem these cards. And in fact, people aren't able to re-up their subscriptions currently with PlayStation Plus if they've lapsed. Take a look at this here. This is posted up over on Push Square, and they have been, I mean, following up with this story throughout the day. PlayStation Plus prepaid cards don't work. Subs can't be purchased on PlayStation Store. They say Sony's support is being absolutely inundated with PlayStation 5 and PS4 owners who can't redeem PlayStation Plus promo codes, the issue which does appear to be more prevalent in Europe right now, but is seemingly affecting consumers worldwide. Blocks legitimately purchase subscriptions from being redeemed. They have a quote here over from Twitter on Heelish Edge, asking PlayStation about this issue with not being able to redeem a code. And after that, people started to actually get updates from some of these different places, whether it was Sony or different retailers who were selling these cards. For example, a support email explains, "I have checked the voucher in your account and can conclude that as of now, there is a temporarily deactivated function for PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now subscriptions, which does not allow for stacking of either membership on already active memberships." To go a bit further, it looks like Sony also deactivated the ability to add on to an already existing active membership where you get the error code, "Can't purchase, can't add to cart. You've already purchased this item." And then we have the retailer Shop2, who responded to a customer query saying, "It appears that with the new integration of PlayStation Plus Premium, Sony have temporarily disabled the stacking of PlayStation Plus subscriptions. This is due to players trying to exploit the carrying over of subscriptions to this service. What this means is any codes which you try to redeem while you already have an ongoing subscription will not be redeemable until either mid-June or until your subscription ends. Please not worry though, all codes are valid and redeemable for up to 12 months from generating it." So to me, this was a mess up on Sony's side. They didn't think about if you have PlayStation Now currently, we'll just roll it over into PlayStation Plus Premium, and they still had codes that were out there with retailers or just on their own website. The fact that you could do that, buy the code from their website and then activate it, I mean, Sony needs to take care of that, and really, they need to redeem any of the codes that they had sold. It's just a really bad look right now for Sony and PlayStation with this situation, blocking subscribers who have fairly purchased these codes. And we see this retailer Shop2 mention, mid-June, might be all right then, and that's because obviously we're gonna have this revamped service, and the hope is, well, then you'll be able to basically redeem, and because the rollover will no longer be happening since they would have done it, then they'll just kind of place you in one of those spots. So if you have a $60 PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Now, I guess they'll just drop you into Essential, or maybe they'll bump you up to Extra. But right now, Sony noticed the exploit, which we already had kind of recognized because they tried to shut it down after Wario64 started passing it around and their website got absolutely crushed with traffic. And at this time, they're just trying to sort this out, and in their mind, we'll just block it. So I think right now Sony needs to look around and realize, this is probably not the way to do it. Let's work this out and allow people to redeem, and then we'll kind of go from here with the idea that you can't just stack these for years and years and years. Microsoft went through the same thing, and they just kind of allow it. Like, there are people who have Xbox Game Pass. I see this passed around online a lot, for the next 4 years because they were able to stack it during that weird in-between time period. And I think people still do it now if they find it on like a candy bar wrapper or something. So Sony trying to navigate this and not really doing a very good job. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft's Summer Showcase. Can't really say E3 Showcase because there's no E3 this year, but all these different publishers, developers, they're still most likely going to hold their own show. It's just going to be at different points throughout the months to come, and I'm sure some will just opt to go with Summer Games Fest if they have like 1 or 2 announcements, just kind of lump it all together and build one show. But Microsoft most likely will have quite a bit to show off, and they wasted no time announcing this because, well, it's like a month and a half out. Typically, you'd see, say, Nintendo last E3 announce 2 weeks prior, and we already kind of knew when they were going to have it, but they wanted to make it official. This is very early, but we'll take a look. This is over on news.xbox.com. Join us Sunday, June 12th for the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase. We're excited to announce that the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase will stream on Sunday, June 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. This show will feature amazing titles coming from Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, and our partners around the world, obviously based on the key art and the marketing they have there on that page. We're expecting to see Starfield, and it would make sense. It's like, what, 5 months before it officially releases, and I mean, that's that's about what we see from Bethesda. They did the same thing from what I remember with Fallout, where they showed gameplay and then months later it finally released. And this would be our big showcase for that gameplay. And I assume this showcase here is going to be a large chunk of just Starfield. That's not to say they won't have a bunch of other stuff. Forza Motorsport is supposed to be coming out at the end of this year with a brand new revamped engine that I believe is also going to bleed over into Fable. And who knows, maybe they want to show Fable off here as well, but I'm still thinking more like Redfall. That's supposed to be summer, but like this showcase is taking place during the summer and we haven't really heard anything about that game since they originally talked about it, outside of like some leaks that got out there from clearly alpha footage. And then you start to look around at all of the other studios that Microsoft could State of Decay 3, despite some reports mentioning troubled development. Could they have something to show here? I mean, maybe Rare figured out what they want Everwild to be and they're prepared to show off a vertical slice of that, maybe Perfect Dark, or we also have to talk about Bethesda. Maybe they want to showcase Indiana Jones, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on of new intellectual properties that could be announced or just finally giving us updates on previously announced stuff. One thing's for sure though, there's gonna be a lot of interest in Starfield since we haven't really seen it and we're all still trying to piece together exactly how Bethesda would tackle the idea of taking Skyrim or Fallout into space. But exciting stuff. Is just now we gotta wait about a month and a half to get there. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, do you have access to a 4K display for gaming? 58% said yes, 42% said no. That's about what I expected in favor of yes. I mentioned I was gonna run this poll because we had talked about VRR being a feature that, while it's being implemented in the Xbox Series and in the PlayStation 5, it does kind of feel like 4K. Back when the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One had come out and was rolling into the PS4 Pro and eventually the Xbox One X, it slowly grew over time in terms of how many people had access to a 4K set. And now you walk into a store and you can get a 4K TV for like less than $300. It's not gonna be the best set at all. It'll probably have fake, if any, HDR, and the image won't be as clear, even though it's 4K, as some of the nicer sets, but it's still accessible. And at this point, people are upgrading their TVs more and more as we've gone along. So I do wonder if we get to a point where just good HDR is very common along with VRR, because we now have the consoles that are set up for that future. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from McAwesomeSauce saying, that's a great point, Sony charging for a service that allows 2-hour testing of games, but does any of that money go to the developers? Very interesting indeed. And for most of us, we're not really gonna care, because we're like, oh cool, I can try out this game that's $70, I can try it out for 2 hours. But I mean, if you're a developer and you're like, well, hold on, like, they just get access to it, do we get any money for this? If you're EA, you have a service, that's one of the features, is you can have a 10-hour trial. Sure, obviously 2 hours, much less than 10 hours, but EA does that thinking, oh, you might subscribe to the service to try these different games out. And if you're someone who tried it out for Battlefield, might have saved you some money. But now EA is thinking like, well, our games are above $34 wholesale. They just kind of get a feature we had for EA Play just as like a default if they're PlayStation Plus Premium. When do we get that kind of money? Like, we're not going to really care, like I said, us the consumers, but the developers, they're certainly going to be asking questions. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was Yuji Naka versus Square Enix. Some scathing words there from Yuji Naka, but what do you think about the entire backstory there? Square Enix removing him 6 months prior to launch. Also, what about the PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Now stacking situation? Sony just blocking PlayStation users there. And then Microsoft's showcase this summer. What are you expecting to see? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.